Hello and welcome everyone to a special webinar on how to switch from Atlas to Measure Ground Control. My name is Gabe and I am the product manager on AgEagle's software team, and I'll be your guide today. So at the end of the demo, I will be hosting a short Q&A session to address questions and concerns about the switch or the platform itself. And I'm going to be joined by Jason Kelly, the VP of Software, Martin Chavez, our technical support team lead, and maybe some other special guests. But for today, I'd like to give you a basic overview of Measure Ground Control and why it's a great replacement for MicaSense's Atlas platform, which is going away tomorrow, September 30th. So what we're going to cover is what is Measure Ground Control as a first, and then we'll talk about how we can create a mission, upload processed data, and how to visualize that data. So these are all things that you are used to doing with MicaSense's Atlas platform. And just for a reminder, how that used to work is that you would process your data from a Red Edge camera in Pix4D Mapper, and then you would hit this upload button on this plugin that you downloaded, and that would bring you over to Atlas. And if it worked, you would have this field that you could visualize and play around with. Most notably, what a lot of people liked to do with it is that you could share this with external stakeholders or clients that you wanted to send the data to. However, there were a lot of fallbacks, a lot of drawbacks. You could not use the newest cameras that MicaSense released, such as the Ultim, the dual camera system, and especially not the brand new cameras that came out, like the panchromatic versions of the Red Edge and Ultim. Given that, we were able to partner with Measure, who joined the AgEagle family in 2021, and we were able to leverage their technology to be able to add all of the features that Atlas provided in Measure. And we're going to go over exactly what that looks like now and how, as an ex-Atlas user, you would be able to do that in Measure. So that being said, let's talk a little bit about what Measure is. So Measure, in a nutshell, is a complete software solution for drones and drone service providers. So it's going to do everything in the spectrum of remote sensing as a solution, from planning your flight to maintenance of your drones, your inventory management, etc., to data processing and analysis of your data. And that's what we're going to hone in on today. We're going to talk mostly about the data processing and analysis portion of the application. There's a lot here to unpack. We won't be going over every single thing in the platform. You'll be more than welcome to do that when you log into your account and see all of the features that Measure Ground Control has to offer. But for today, we're just going to talk about those simple features like visualizing your data. So with that being said, let's go ahead and log into Measure Ground Control. I'm going to, following this link here, I'm going to be taken to the dashboard since I'm already logged in. And let's talk a little bit about this dashboard. First things first, in the near future, this page is getting a facelift. So I wish that it would have been ready to show today, but unfortunately, we're still working on it to make sure it's going to be really nice. But it'll still have all the functionality, but just a heads up that you may see this change in the near future. But if you're looking at this page, yes, it gives you some information that you would probably want to know, like, for example, missions that you have completed recently, how many flights in total that you've done. So a lot of useful information here. In the new version, we're going to have these data points editable so that you can change what is important to you. But for now, let's look at the top of this page here. There's a few things here that I'd like to take point your attention to. Number one is that you can process data here. So this is if you have raw data, whether it's from a MicaSense camera or an RGB camera, you can simply go here to upload mapping and photogrammetry data types or inspection and annotation data types. And after tweaking a few settings, you will be sending it over to Pix4D engine, and it will let you know as soon as it's done processing. One huge advantage to that, by the way, is that you're not going to be hogging all of your system's resources. And a lot of computers will, for processing large data sets, you need very powerful components. You need a great graphics card. You need a ton of memory, and especially you need a lot of disk space to hold all of that data. With Measure, we kind of get rid of all of that need because you're just sending us the data and we're processing it and hosting it for you as long as you need. Now, of course, keep in mind that that processing part of it is a paid feature, but let's look at the other things that are included in Measure Ground Control that are equivalent to what you can do in Atlas. So the first thing is that you can do is plan a flight. Planning a flight is going to be very easy so that you can quickly make a grid flight over any of your farms or fields and be able to, when you're out there as a pilot with a drone, you can sync your account from here to your mobile app, and all of your flight plans are going to be there ready to go. And with a single touch of a button, you're going to be able to launch the drone and get to flying faster. And that is going to save you a lot of space and remove any ambiguity over what are the field or are the flight parameters, so that especially if you have multiple pilots that you work with, this is going to save you a ton of time by removing the ambiguity and be able to pre-plan these flights. But of course, with the mobile app, you can plan a flight immediately from the app. This is just going to save you a ton of time. Now, if I have a processed orthomosaic from that I've processed in Pix4D Mapper, Agisoft Metashape, something like that, I can simply go to my missions that I've created, or projects if you will, and then over here in the mission summary page or project summary page, I'm using these terms interchangeably because they might be a little bit confusing when you're first in here, but we categorize missions as like a project where it holds all this information of either a certain area or client that you work with. It just organizes things a lot better here. And this summary page will show you a lot of information such as associated flight plans that you've created, any processed data that you have here. But this is where I wanted to draw your attention, is this data products module here. You can either import data, which is where you can upload a GeoTIFF that you have processed already in Pix4D Mapper or Agisoft Metashape, or you can go ahead and process data like I showed you before, where you can actually send us the raw data for it to be processed with Pix4D Engine. But what does it look like when it's processed, or when you upload a processed data set? It's going to take you over to the map. If you click one of these thumbnails, it's going to take you to the map, just as I have here already loaded up. This here is a multispectral data set from a MicaSense Atlas flown on a Matrice 300 drone. This was sometime last year. We flew over a baseball field in a local high school just to test out some new features. And what I can show you here on the left-hand side is that I have the baseball field selected as my data product, and underneath there are all these outputs or layers that you can select. So RGB is selected by default, and as you can see, this is a RGB composite image from the red, green, and blue layers of the MicaSense Atlas. It's overlaid on top of a satellite imagery, which so you can tell that this is obviously the higher quality and true color composite image. But let's say I wanted to see the NDVI of this field. I simply check off NDVI here, and now my orthomosaic is now showing me the normalized differential vegetation index here that we wanted to see. And Let's say that for some reason I wanted to change the minimum and maximum values for better visualization. I can click here to show the histogram. And I can do a couple of things here. I can change the minimum and maximum values. I can change the color ramp to be the palette that I prefer, or even reversing the color ramp if you wish. You can also create an image mask. Now this is useful if you wanted to have just a small portion of a much larger orthomosaic so that you can focus on a certain area. This does take a little bit of processing time. So if you make an image mask, it might take a minute or two to do that. So I'm not gonna do that right now. But one thing that is easy to show you is this opacity slider. So that way, if I'm somehow zoomed in here, it's probably easier to see this. If I turn down the opacity of NDVI, I still see a little bit of the layer underneath, the RGB layer underneath, as you can see, like that. And then I can slowly turn up the opacity to start seeing the NDVI values populate a lot clearer. So that can be really helpful if you want to change that between NDVI and any other layers. But let's see some other layers we have. We have LCI, leaf chlorophyll index. That is a very useful feature to be able to measure the level of chlorophyll content in the leaves of all of this vegetation. And of course, you as the analyst would know which agricultural index is best for your use case, but we have these included in multispectral datasets NDVI, NDRE, BNDVI, GNDVI, LCI, SIPI2, VARI, and even a grayscale of the orthomosaic. We are working on adding some more, such as the thermal LWIR layer for thermal cameras. We are working on adding the panchromatic pan sharpening functionality from the MicaSense panchromatic cameras. So that way you're going to be able to see a very sharp detail of from pan sharpened images. So that is the basic overview of this map viewer. You're going to be able to see all of your data products here. And if you had other data products besides this one that I'm just showing you here, they would just be in a long list here where you can search for the one you want and be able to look at all the layers that you like. Now, before I forget, there's something very important to show you here at the very end of this demo, is that next to your field, there's a context menu where you can do a couple of very important things, very powerful things. You can either share this data set. So if you click here, you can generate and send your share links for this field. This will mean that you can send someone the ground control share link and they're going to be able to see all of the layers you've already selected here. And they can see this from any browser, anywhere, as long as they've got an internet connection. Pix4D's share link is a link to their Pix4D cloud. And that's not going to keep all of the layers that you've selected. It's going to be in Pix4D's own environment, which you may or may not prefer. But we give you the option to use either one because when you process your data set with Pix4D Engine, they automatically have a Pix4D cloud link. So we give that to you. But if you don't have Pix4D cloud or you did not use Pix4D Engine in Measure to process this data set, you can simply send them the ground control share link. Now, if you wanted to download the files, you can do that. You can also export the files in case you needed to do that, and check your Pix4D quality report and process logs. So these are very important features that you can do simply by clicking on the context menu of any field of your choice. So with that, I believe that we conclude the very basic overview of Measure Ground Control and how you can use it as a replacement for Atlas. Keep in mind that this is still a work in progress. We are always updating Measure Ground Control to be better every couple of weeks when we send out updates. So keep subscribed to any newsletter that we have if you are interested in seeing any patch notes or and updates. We are giving this page a facelift. We are coming out with some very powerful features for the mobile app as well. So keep in touch if you want to see all of the great improvements that are coming down the line and be part of this really great piece of software that is being included as part of your software suite. Okay, and that concludes the demo of Measure Ground Control with a very brief overview on the features that matter to you most as a ex-MicaSense Atlas user. Now, just to give you a quick lay of the land, Measure Ground Control does work with all MicaSense cameras, including the Red Edge P and Altum PT. However, we still don't have panchromatic data processing. That's coming down the pipeline very soon. And you can still fly the drones with whatever app you prefer. For example, if you're using the DJI Matrice 300 and you prefer to use DJI Pilot to fly the drone, you can still do that. You can still take the data and upload it here automatically with Pix4D Engine, or you can still process it with Agisoft Metashape or anything else that you prefer on the side. So there are various ways that you can use Measure Ground Control. You don't have to be in the full ecosystem and use all of it in one place. Although it is very easy to do all in one place, it is not necessary. So you can use the platform however you like it and whatever works for you. And I believe that we have a ton of great features coming down the pipeline that are going to really increase the value proposition for everybody that uses it. So stay tuned for all of the new features and improvements that we have down the line. We are now going to switch over to a Q&A session shortly where we're going to answer any questions and concerns, whether it's something that I covered here or anything else that you can think of that is related to Measure Ground Control and Atlas. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and I'll see you in the Q&A. All right, thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I hope that you learned a little bit and that you are going to find it a really great piece of software coming from Atlas. I know that I only covered the tip of the iceberg here, but today I'm going to be joined by Martin Chavez, who's right here as the lead technical support of Measure, as well as Jason Kelly, our VP of software. I am going to be holding this Q&A for about 15 minutes or until we have no more questions. I've already got a few questions coming in right now, which a couple of them I have answered through text, but on others, I would like to just go ahead and read them out loud and answer them live. So one of them that came in just now was whether we have plans to support the DJI M300 with the Gremsy Pixie SM gimbal for mapping. So that is actually, we do support the M300 as a drone, and the drone itself, whether it can support the Gremsy gimbal, I believe it is able to attach to the M300. However, we don't have the actual camera on the list of supported cameras. We can definitely look into adding that for support, but I believe that you might just need to enter the custom parameters that will work for the camera's parameters so that you have enough overlap for your mapping. But we do have full support for the drone itself, so you'll be able to control it from the Measure Ground Control app. So hopefully that answers your question enough, but I have another question here that is regarding whether the optional data processing functionality in Measure Ground Control means that you will no longer need a separate license for Pix4D. That's a great question. So because Measure Ground Control offers processing, you're going to be able to send us the raw data, and using Pix4D Engine, it is going to process all of the data for you. And so if you have a recurring subscription with Pix4D, for example, you will no longer need to pay for a separate license for processing your software. It is entirely up to you, of course, if you process it somewhere else, but with Measure's processing offering, it cuts off one other piece of software that might be required in your workflow, so you can keep everything in one place. It helps with a lot of your workflow to make it all in one place and make it a lot more convenient. So I've got a couple of questions here from another one, Paul, and I think I might put this one on Martin. How many projects can be uploaded, and is there a size of weight or images like to be uploaded, possibly asking about the limit? Martin, do you maybe want to chime in?
So with we have different pricing formats with our free pricing right now. You can submit 2 projects per month. You have that allowance. If you sign up for a pro subscription, you can submit an unlimited amount of projects, and our enterprise users can also do that. We don't have a current limit of images, but we recommend keeping it under 3,000.
Very good. And it looks like Paul, you had the same question, or the same person asked a quick follow-up about whether it can support SenseFly drones. At the moment, even though we are partnered with SenseFly, we're under the same AgEagle banner. SenseFly drones do require, at the moment, to be piloted by its own software called eMotion. And we do plan on further down the line figuring out how we're going to be able to support fixed wing drones in general, because the way that the app is designed is really only for quadcopters. And so supporting fixed wing drones has a fundamental difference on how the app is able to communicate with them and how it sends the parameters. So that is a challenge that we are looking at and definitely looking forward to figuring out. But as of right now, we do not support SenseFly drones. You will still need to use their own software, eMotion, in order to control them. So that will be the reality for a little while. Let's see, I have one other question here that came in rather recently that about missing the beginning of the webinar, and so asking whether you need to pay extra for Pix4D. So great question. Measure Ground Control does offer processing, and that is a paid feature. So however, for the price that you get processing with Measure Ground Control, it can actually save you money over paying for Pix4D Mapper as a separate license. So it, although Pix4D Mapper is going to be probably giving you a lot more finer control over what you might want to process in the options, but Pix4D Engine is what we use for our processing, and it will give you essentially the same quality of processing and almost as many options during your processing upload, and it's going to end up being a good bit cheaper than paying for a separate license. So definitely recommend it if you do like Pix4D and trust Pix4D and you want to use Measure, just to use it all in one place and save yourself some money. Let's take a look here. Maybe Jason could chime in on this next one here, which is, will we be able to do contour lines from a DSM? I'm not sure if maybe that is something that you are familiar with, but thinking that I might try some questions here.
Yeah, so for not for multispectral cameras, but for an RGB capture from a drone, if you do the capture and processing through Measure, that will be processed through Pix4D Engine, and one of the outputs you can select is a contour layer. So it'll generate the stitched ortho mosaic, and it will also generate a contour layer as a vector layer in the outputs. So from that point, you have a couple of choices. You can view the contours in the Measure map viewer. You can view it directly in the Pix4D UI, or you can download the files or share them out with others. So you should be able to see that output.
Very good. Great, thank you. And Martin, I was hoping maybe you could answer this next follow-up is, in the paid license, can you upload more than 300 images? Because with cameras like multispectral cameras such as the Altum, it's almost impossible to get less than 300 images. And of course, remember that, with a multispectral camera, every capture has multiple layers. So 300 images would be very easy to achieve with a small flight. So you mentioned 300 before. Is that a hard limit? Is there some kind of limitation? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, just so I'm understanding this correctly, with my previous answer, I meant 3000 RGB images. With multispectral cameras, it really depends on the size of and the quality of the image, right? So we want to keep the GSD a bit lower. So we have so the resolution is also lower, and the size of the file is lower. So it would really depend on the resolution, but yes, we can upload 300 images to the measure.
And from my own experience, I believe that we have processed very large data sets, and it might take a little bit longer for it to be ready, but I've not experienced any issues that regarding just the size. It just really takes a little bit longer to process.
Right. We also, just one more thing, we also offer different resolution options, so you can lower the resolution before submitting the project for processing.
Very good. Great. So we got another question here regarding the processing options, whether the processing will support ground control points, and if it also supports MicaSense reflectance panels during the processing. So the answer is yes for both. During the image import in the processing workflow, you're going to be able to actually use the ground control points selector tool. If you'd like to use ground control points, you'll be able to zoom in and select the very center of your GCPs across the entire field. Of course, the amount of GCPs and images that you select GCPs from will be up to you, but we do have some best practices from Pix4D regarding the amount of GCPs that you should use for a certain field size and how many images you might need. But that functionality is there. We have a knowledge base with more information regarding that. As for the MicaSense reflectance panels, it does support that as well. In the mobile app, in fact, you are able to automatically detect the panels, and in fact, you can even connect to the camera directly to send the command to capture the reflectance panel from the app without having to leave it. And the processing workflow does automatically detect the panels during the process. So no need to actually find the images in your data set to find them and select them or create an image mask or anything like that. It's very simple and it just works. So let's move on to a couple of other questions that are coming in here. In the paid license, oh, sorry, that was actually the previous question. So it looks like we might have gone over pretty much all the questions so far. I'll give it a couple of minutes to see if anybody else might want to chime in on any questions, whether it's about measure ground control, the demo, or anything else regarding the software and the future. But so far, thanks for everybody for stopping by. Give this a couple of minutes here. Okay. Perfect. All right, we have one more that came in here. What other multispectral cameras do you support? So there are a list of multispectral cameras that are supported by Pix4D engine. Some of them would include such as Centera, which was released rather recently. But with regards to MicaSense, that one is the one that we have the tightest integration for because they are a sister company. So you will see a list of all the MicaSense cameras that are available. all MicaSense cameras are compatible. However, the Ultim and Ultim PT and the Red Edge P, the ones that are panchromatic, those ones we're still developing the panchromatic sharpening, pan sharpening features for. But you'll still be able to process the multispectral layers just on any one of the MicaSense cameras, which was not a feature in Atlas. Atlas, unfortunately, was up until development stopped for it, it would only support Red Edge cameras. And let's take a look here. Another one came in that is regarding whether or not there will be a live view when flying. So a live view is really only for the RGB cameras. So MicaSense cameras do not, and other multispectral cameras do not provide a live view while flying. So RGB cameras that are supported are going to be giving a live view. Now, as for the, we do have live streaming in mobile, not on web though. So if you do have the app and you're flying a camera with a DJI drone and a DJI camera, it is going to be able to give you that live preview. You can check out the list of all the drones and cameras that are supported in our knowledge base as well. All right. So let's take a look here. There is one more question that came in here, and Jason, you may be wanting to take this one, which is what plans or options are there for measured ground control? Just to ask a quick clarification, is that asking about the pricing structure or trials or something like that, or is it in regards to the pricing and plans? And gotcha. Okay. Jason, did you maybe want to talk a little bit about that? Maybe just a brief.
Yeah, is the question about the pricing plans?
It does look like that. Yeah. What options or plans are there for measured ground control?
Yeah, sure. So we offer a free trial to anyone who wants to try the service, for sure. And once you've decided to adopt ground control, there's a couple of plans you can choose from. We currently offer the Pro plan for, looking up the latest pricing, $69 a month if you pay for a year. And that includes one user and unlimited processing of RGB maps and multispectral maps through Measure through the Pix4D. If you have needs beyond that, we have tiered pricing for enterprise customers. So we offer multiple users, unlimited map processing, and some other more advanced features like detailed reporting, higher end mission management, and custom integrations and enterprise plans. So for that, we can provide more details if you just contact us through email and talk to us, provide your needs there. And yeah, I think that kind of summarizes the offering.
Okay. Well, great. I did want to call out that we are at the bottom of the hour, and we did promise about 15 minutes for the webinar portion and 15 minutes for the Q&A. I think we did answer all questions that have come up so far. If any last minute ones come in, happy to talk about that. Just as a reminder, we are going to be sending a copy of this whole recording to everyone that signed up for the webinar, and feel free to share it if you'd like. And if there are any follow-up questions that come up, we're happy to address them. You can send an email to Measure's support team, or even MicaSense's support team if it's regarding sensors, and we're happy to answer any of them as they come. So if you did miss this webinar, don't be afraid, we could just answer your questions later, and we'll be working with you to support you, and the newest features that are coming out in Measured Ground Control are coming very soon. So thank you so much for joining the webinar, and we're looking forward to helping you out in the future and providing you with the best features and tools that we can. All right, thanks so much. We'll be ending the webinar now, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for joining.